So there's a player that has consistently been mocked to the Green Bay Packers as of late in the first round, most recently with Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, and that is none other than cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. So in today's video, I want to break down Maxwell Hairston, show you why he could be a good fit with the Green Bay Packers, but also some things that don't fit with the Green Bay Packers. But I have seen a couple mock drafts in the last few weeks mocking Maxwell Hairston to the Packers in the first round, so it got me intrigued. Obviously, the Packers have a need at cornerback. Even if they keep Jaire Alexander, there's a high chance the Packers still get a cornerback early in this draft. Of course, they signed Nate Hobbs this offseason, who is probably better suited at nickel cornerback, can play on the outside, but even if they lose Jaire or keep Jaire, they need depth in the cornerback room after losing Eric Stokes, Robert Rochelle, Corey Ballantyne. Overall, they need more talent in that room. So if the Packers go cornerback in either the first, second, or third round, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And Maxwell Hairston is someone that's rising up boards, and we could hear his name called on night one. So we're going to go over the profile of Maxwell Hairston, see what kind of works for the Green Bay Packers with this prospect, and also go over the tape and what I really like about him. Guys, a quick reminder to go check out BetUsTV for more sports content. They have a YouTube channel with March Madness starting today. If you want to stay in the loop with all of that and more sports content, go check out BetUsTV on YouTube, also over there on X as well. Their channel will be pinned down in the description below. All right, so first let's dive down into the mock draft. The most recent mock draft I saw, it came out a couple days ago from Daniel Jeremiah, and Daniel Jeremiah knows his stuff. He knows his draft, and every year he's one of the closest analysts in terms of mock drafts or what players he thinks are going to go to certain teams. And this came out a couple days ago. We're not going to go over all the picks from other teams because it doesn't matter too much. But interestingly, he has Maxwell Hairston as the fourth cornerback taken in this draft. One before the Green Bay Packers, the pick before. Tetairoa McMillan goes at 22, which seems like he is kind of falling here. That is an option for the Packers, but today we're talking about Maxwell Hairston. So obviously the three corners that went before him, Travis Hunter, of course, Will Johnson, and Jahdae Barron. I think he had Jahdae Barron going before Will Johnson, which also seems like that could happen as well. So Maxwell Hairston, the fourth corner, off the board here in this Jeremiah mock draft. And at pick 23, he has the Packers sitting here. I don't believe he has trades in this mock. And he says, it's not clear if Jaire Alexander has a future in Green Bay, so the Packers turn to the highly dynamic Hairston at cornerback. Like I said earlier, I don't think it matters if Jaire's there or not. Obviously, things do change. If you have Jaire, right, your cornerback room is a lot better if Jaire remains healthy. And that's why I say it doesn't change many things, because if he's healthy, and I think given his injury history, regardless, you got to go get talent and depth in that cornerback room. So even if the Packers mend with Jaire and he takes a pay cut and lowers his cap hit for 2025, which I don't see happening, I still would want the Packers to target a cornerback early, someone like Maxwell Hairston, who could grow into a cornerback one in this Jeff Hafley defense for sure. Now, when you take a look at the consensus board right now, again, we're still over a month out of the draft. Maxwell Hairston is all the way at 39. This is actually the highest he's been. So he's on the trend upwards, right? So Maxwell Hairston is at 39 on the consensus big board, and this is the highest he's been. As you can see here, since late February, early March, he took a spike because he was down at about rank 65 late February. This is how much stuff changes during the draft, right? And if you're thinking, oh, this is too, low of a player on the consensus board for the Packers to go after, well, Jordan Morgan was ranked 35th, and at a certain point, early March, he was 37th. So very similar to where Maxwell Hairston, is right now. If you're looking exactly, March 20th, 22nd, he was ranked 35th, Jordan Morgan. So not that much different. So, the consensus board isn't the end-all be-all where NFL GMs look at this and go, oh, can't get this player yet. No, they're going to have their own boards. We know the Packers do this, and a lot of the times the Packers make selections where you're going, oh, wow, that player was so-and-so on the consensus board. So Hairston is definitely an option for the Packers at 23, or trade back in the first round, or trade back into the second round, or trade up into the second round. He's definitely on the table for the Green Bay Packers in terms of where he's ranked. Now, let's go over his RAS profile, because obviously the Packers always, and I mean always, love a cornerback that's 9.0 RAS or plus or greater. Now, one thing that's working against Maxwell Hairston in potentially being a Packers target is his weight. He's at 183 pounds. And the Packers always, and I mean like 9 times out of 10, love their cornerbacks to be 195 plus pounds. The one time they went away from that in the past decade was Shamar Jean-Charles at 184 pounds. And look how that turned out. It was a very weird pick. Shamar Jean-Charles, he had like a 4.0 RAS. He was 184 pounds. Not a player we thought the Packers had that on their board at all, and they still went that. But what you really like about Hairston, and maybe this keeps him on the Packers board, is his elite explosion and his absolutely insane speed. And we know the Packers love speed at cornerback. He ran a 4.28 40 at this combine. 20-yard split was great. 10-yard split was good, right? Explosion, 39.5-inch vertical, 10'9" broad jump. He's 5'11", so the height is fine. The Packers like 5'10", at least. They like them to be 5'11 plus. He's at 5'11", so that's good there. He also has pretty long arms at 31 inches there. A 9.62 RAS. The one thing that is kind of like making me go, do the Packers have interest in Maxwell Hairston is the weight. But I think, they could bulk him up a bit and maybe he loses some of that speed, but you love the speed. You love the explosion, right? If you're Brian Gutekunst, you're looking at this and you're going, maybe I can look past this 183 pounds due to the other parameters. Whereas Shamar Jean-Charles was light and not an athlete. So that one just, again, made no sense. Now, when you're looking at Hairston's profile here on PFF, he had an injury in 2025. He injured his shoulder initially in the season, and actually played through that shoulder injury in week 3 and 4 against Georgia and against Ohio, and actually had a pick 6 against Ohio with his injured shoulder, then sat out after that for 5 weeks. So he had an injury issue in 2024, but obviously seems fully healthy going through that combine. No problem, and grading out as one of the highest RAS corners in the upcoming draft. I think he was actually the 4th highest RAS corner in this upcoming draft. And what you really want to look at is 2023. And we have film from both 2023 and 2024. I actually have some film from this Georgia game where he graded low, but I thought actually had a pretty solid game. And one thing to note, the Packers love players that maybe aren't as highly touted in this upcoming draft because of a down year or an injured year in 2024 or the past year. But then the year prior to that, they had a very good year. Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, both very similar there. And he had a great year in 2023. He played all 13 games. He allowed 44 receptions on 67 targets. He did allow 3 touchdowns, but had 5 interceptions and only a quarterback rating of 67.5. Now, in the 7 games he did play, and again, 2 of them he played with a shoulder injury and actually had his highest graded game with the shoulder injury against Ohio, albeit it is Ohio. But he allowed 12 receptions, 262 yards, didn't allow a touchdown. He had an interception and allowed a quarterback rating of 78.2. Maxwell Hairston is a 3-year player, but only a 2-year starter for the Kentucky Wildcats defense, and has really only played outside cornerback. They actually have put him at deep safety a couple times, usually when they're in running situations. I watched the Kentucky defense where they kind of just put him as the single high safety when they know the other team's running, just kind of as a safety blanket back there. But he's going to be an outside cornerback at the NFL level, and right now the Packers need outside cornerback help. Now, some of the pros and cons for at least PFF's profile here. Solid wrap-up tackler. We know we like that for Packers cornerbacks. Visible communicator, pre and post snap. That's great. You need that from a cornerback. Shows a good understanding of run fit duties. Also great for the Packers, right? Adequate first step quickness and acceleration. We know that. I mean, he ran a 4.28 40. Has great explosion. We know that. Cons, very light build. So again, kind of circling back to that weight there. Hands get grabby when he's in trouble. I don't know if I necessarily take this as a con. He's a lighter cornerback. You want him to remain physical. When I'm watching the tape, he does get grabby at times, but not, in my opinion, enough at the NFL level to get a ton of flags. It's not very apparent when you're watching it. It just seems like a cornerback, hand fighting with a receiver, which I like, a lighter cornerback to remain physical. Lacks true anticipation, can look out of control at times with turns and steps. I do agree with this. I saw a couple plays where it's like, okay, what's he really going for there? High interception total was more about opportunities than true ball skills and anticipation. I'm sure if you watch some of those interceptions, it might be tipped passes. I didn't go back and look at them last year, all the interceptions, but I'm sure that's what that means there. And the review is Hairston is a feisty competitor who likes to get his hands on receivers in bump and run coverage and from off coverage techniques. See, I like that. I don't really see that as a con, right? A lot of cornerbacks get their hands on receivers every single play. It just depends on the ref group you have and how the game flow is going. As a zone-heavy cornerback, he has the chance to develop into a cornerback 2 type of player in the NFL. When you watch the Kentucky defense, which I'll show you in the film, he is a zone-heavy corner, and this is why I like him for the Green Bay Packers, because we ran a ton of cover 3 zone this past season under Jeff Hafley, and Hairston shows elite potential in a cover 3 scheme. All right, so now let's dive down into the tape. I watched, again, 2 games from Maxwell Hairston. The first game I watched in 2023 was against Missouri, and then I watched in 2024 where he played with an injured shoulder against Georgia. So let's dive right into it. I'll bring up the screen, and I just stated that I think Maxwell Hairston can be an elite, or has elite potential as a cover 3 zone cornerback at the NFL level, something the Packers ran a ton last year. And this is why. I think his zone matching and understanding concepts and carrying routes through his zone, but also remaining true to his zone in case there's an underlying route that's going to then, enter into his zone. He has very good IQ and vision when it comes to that. So here on this play, this is going to be a post wheel concept. So we have a post route from the outside receiver, and Kentucky's in cover 3. So they're dropping a robber safety down low. This safety is going to rotate middle, and then they also have a deep corner back here, linebacker to the flat, cornerback flat, right? It's going to be a post wheel concept. So we have this receiver running a post, and then we have this running back running a wheel underneath. So as a cover 3 cornerback, you want to track this post long enough to give your safety some help. And this safety actually robots, turns around, tracks this post, but you also want to remain true to your zone. If you think, you're not aware of this play coming, and you watch this post and you track this post because you're like, okay, this is the only route to the outside here. I'm going to track this post because I'm kind of in like a cover 3 match. You're going to allow this wheel wide open 1v1 versus this flat edge defender or linebacker against this running back, which could be a walk-in touchdown. So the key thing here is to watch Maxwell Hairston and his eyes here. So he watches both receivers here. So he watches the receiver running the post, but he's also keeping eyes on the quarterback, right? So this defender down here is kind of rerouting or trying to reroute this receiver to help out Hairston and mess up timing on this play. Then you have this quick wheel by the running back. So Hairston's going to watch both receivers here in this case, watch his hips, watch him break on this post, track that post for a half a second, but also keep his eyes right back on the quarterback. And you see the quarterback's eyes transfer from the post because the safety in the robber role is roboting back and covering up this post. And you watch Hairston look back and see his defender on the edge here is going to get beat by a wheel route, and he rotates right back to it. Quick break on the ball, interception, right? This quarterback thinks fully right at about this moment. That's a touchdown for a wheel, right? That's a wheel route touchdown. He's burning this edge defender. You put a good air ball out there, this cornerback back is turned to this receiver, but Hairston does a great job keeping his eyes on the cornerback, flipping around, and then quick burst on that football, getting both feet in for an awesome interception. His awareness in zone coverage is what really stands out. Here's another great example of that. Again, Kentucky's in cover 3. They were a lot this year. They ran a lot of cover 3. And this play is supposed to kind of pick on a cornerback, and that's been matching a lot. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a 9 on the outside. We're going to have kind of a deep crosser here. And then this receiver is going to come back and cross this way. So what you're kind of picking on here is if they're running cover 3 match, this cornerback's going to match this receiver because no one else is entering their zone. And this is a long developing crosser. So maybe that cornerback completely vacates his zone, and then you have this crosser into a wide open, area of the field. But again, Hairston has great IQ when playing zone coverage. So yeah, he's going to match this low crosser. So it's actually a low crosser rather than a high crosser. He's going to track this, although his responsibility is this outside third here. But if no one's entering your zone, you're supposed to kind of match and move with the play, right? But he notices once that crosser is staying low, he sees this crosser coming backside. He gets his eyes right on this receiver. And at that very moment, he flips his hips, gets his head around, and flips around. And if that ball went that way, Maxwell Hairston's making a play on that football. So again, the football IQ is huge here, understanding how to zone match, but also remaining, true to your responsibility is huge when playing outside zone cornerback in a scheme similar to Jeff Hafley's, right? Keep your eye on the quarterback, but also remain true to your zone. This is another example of this, but in terms of a tackle from Maxwell here, I think they might actually be in cover 4 here because we have 2 deep, corner. So Maxwell Hairston is still tasked with the outside zone here. So he's going to pass off this post. The moment he sees this quarterback, quarterback's looking middle, he's trying to dictate and move people to the inside here to get this post, but he has his linebacker. He hears 2 deep safeties. He knows he doesn't have to track this, but he has a flat, I think, running back or tight end getting into the flat here. He reads the quarterback's eyes like a book, passes off that post, breaks down on this flat route, and makes a solid tackle for a minimal gain. Again, as we went over his profile, definitely a willing tackler and breaks down on the football very well. Here's pretty much the same exact thing. Again, they're kind of in a cover 4 look, outside post, right? Hairston tracks that long enough to kind of remove that as an option for the quarterback, then transitions, gets right into the flat. It's not a great throw. The receiver kind of drops it there as well. But even if it was caught, I think Hairston blows that thing up and, causes a pass breakup. And, if that's a little bit more to the outside, you might be talking about a pick 6 here for Maxwell Hairston. Now for some 2024 film against Georgia. Here we have Hairston at the top of the screen. He's in man coverage. I'm sorry for the framing. It's just kind of how the coach's film was for this play here. He's going to do a great job at watching the hips of this wide receiver on this hitch route. Now, the receiver doesn't run it too well. He doesn't snap down too well, and he gets bad footing and kind of slips. But Hairston does a great job at reading the hips and then attacking through that football. It's also a poor pass there, but I think even if it was on target, Hairston would have got a hand in there and broke that pass up. So he also showcases his ability to line up outside man-on-man coverage and read a receiver's hips. Here's another great example of zone coverage against Georgia. And again, this is playing with a hurt shoulder this entire game. So in this play, Georgia's kind of run a smash concept where you have, kind of a curl, then a corner. You're trying to pull a cornerback down and allow this corner route to open right up. So Hairston, again, eyes on the quarterback, read and react, what Jeff Hafley says, but also understands his responsibility as a deep third, and then flips his hips, gets around, gets his hands on this wide receiver. So when that con on the PFF profile said, he gets handsy at times, I like this type of play here. To me, that's not holding. That's an uncatchable ball to the outside. He's forcing the receiver to the sideline. It's not over the top. It's not PI in my opinion, and it wasn't called as PI on the field. I like him flipping his hips, getting his hands on the receiver, tracking this football, and playing aggressive through this and forcing an incomplete pass, a ball that never really had a chance. Now, one thing that's listed in Hairston in some draft profiles is his anticipation. Sometimes he wants to really break down and get after a curl route, kind of similar to like Rasul Douglas, what he did back in the day, where it's like, oh man, a double move could cook Rasul Douglas. And I only watched 2 games, have you? But against Georgia, they tried running double moves against Hairston a bunch, and maybe he got cooked by double moves in the week prior, and they saw it on tape. But he showed great patience against double moves against Georgia. So you're at the top of the screen, you have this receiver running a hitch and go, and the receiver does a decent job. He sinks his hips, but he really doesn't sell it too well, right? Like, it's real quick, but it's enough to, a lot of the time, get the cornerback to bite a tiny bit. And then you have separation. But the thing about Hairston is he's very patient in this one. And even if he'd been on that, he has great recovery speed. He ran a 4.28 40. So even if he does kind of bite on double moves a little bit, I think he has so much recovery speed that he could then still track down a deep ball, even if he bites on a double move. And the ball obviously doesn't go that way because it's locked up. But again, great patience here. He doesn't even really stutter. Very, very slightly does he start to work back to that. But then his recovery there, force the receiver to the boundary. It's not even an option. And the last clip I have, another example of a double move. So I'm sure the week before Hairston got beat on a double move or something for a touchdown. I'm sure that's what happened in Georgia, was like, we can pick on this guy with double moves, but it didn't work. So that also shows Hairston, maybe had a couple issues the weeks prior, got into the lab and fixed it, right? And knew, hey, I have to remain more patient. I have to understand that we can't allow, deep touchdown here on a double move. And again, the patience here. Watch the hips of the receiver. And the receiver does an excellent job. I think this is this is a lot better than the previous one, right? He kind of sinks his hips really low, drops his hand, sinks his hips, and then even puts a little bit of a rocker inside. That's a beautiful double move. That should beat most cornerbacks. But Hairston sees it all the way through, remains patient, and then right when that receiver then breaks back to the outside to go run deep, he gets his hands on the receiver. And again, I like this physicality. That's not holding. That's not PI. That's remaining physical at the top of the route, which you should do, especially as a lighter cornerback that could potentially get bodied by bigger receivers. I love that from Hairston, and that's why I'm not too worried about his weight being a little bit lower, because he plays physical. He gets his hands on receivers, and he has tremendous recovery speed in case he does potentially get beat by a double move. Great rep here on that double move by Maxwell Hairston. So that's all the tape I have from Maxwell Hairston. My closing statements are this. There are other cornerbacks that quote unquote fit the Packers thresholds more, but I think, and this is just speculation, Brian Gutekunst might be okay with the lighter weight due to watching the film, seeing he plays more physical than a 184-pound cornerback, but obviously his athletic profile, a 9+ RAS, a 4.28 40. I think he was the fastest cornerback or one of the fastest corners at the combine. And we know the Packers love athletes. We know the Packers love speed. And we're still over a month out from the draft. So although the consensus has Hairston at 39, this is his peak. He's on the uprise. He's on the uptrend. He very well could end up as the 32nd, 33rd, maybe even higher ranked prospect on consensus board. And as I stated earlier, that doesn't matter for the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Morgan was 35th, and they selected him at 25. So the consensus really doesn't matter too much. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I really like Hairston for this defense because he shows elite potential at running cover 3 outside cornerback. He has great football IQ. He's plays more physical than his frame. He has elite speed and athleticism. And overall, I really like him in terms of a prospect for the Packers at the cornerback position, which they have a need at. I really appreciate you guys coming by to the video. A reminder to go check out BetUsTV. I linked it, their YouTube down in the description below. They also have an account over there on X for more sports content. I appreciate you guys coming by. Go click the like button if you did enjoy the video. It supports the channel a ton. Click subscribe to remain in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers this offseason. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.